Hello everyone. My name's Seungpok Choi. I glad to meet you having class together. This is the first time I have the class with the students studying with one of my book, Design in Nature. Um, I try to show another view to the temple in this class. Actually, when we think of nature, we are always fresh and uh, our heart trembles. When you look close, nature is beautiful and fragrant. Visual composition neatly arranges our minds. Most of the time, it unfolds like poetry, like a calm jazz on another, from almost all elements. Not just one special one. Suddenly my mind becomes peaceful. The more we look at nature, the more anguish in the world disappears. The soul, our soul becomes clear. Meaning is aesthetics of the space. Something like nature intends to talk about if it is expressed in a word. It is pure beauty. Temples in nature change their appearance according to their appearance and characteristics. The visual, when we see, be carefully, the visual compositions of the temple, such as the plum blossoms. When plum blossom in the most beautiful seasons, and the tile on the fence, the tile on the roof, especially in a Korean traditional house. These harmonize with the nature. A shadow of the stones bridge over the flowing stream in the water, and the stone wells that gives a small magnificence behind the temple. So there's lots of things behind the temple. These are all in harmony with the nature. The compositions of nature becomes one body, becomes like one, totally one things. Like the figure of a woman in a graceful dance. It looks like, woman in a graceful dance. And people looks like having a dance there. As such, the temple is a space in a form with many stories and memories. There is a beautiful architecture, mu- music, art, and cultures. And sometimes have, stories, life beyond time and space. Regardless of major or professions, it has been believed there is essentially no difference between the basic visual and the spatial relationships that everyone considers. If there is a difference, maybe a small, minor difference, it lies in the degree of interpretation of the visual compositions required according to the situation everyone see and feel. Whenever you see, everybody has different feeling. Something like, when you see stones, people, sometimes feel very sad moments, because they most of the time, thinking about their life, such as I'm convinced there is an appropriate proper visual interpretations for all these people to understand, feel, and express. Temples in nature have very mysterious and interesting concepts that can possibly be a visual compositions. The designer, such like us, we may be someone who organizes the complex visual relationships of nature, because there's lots of complexity, lots of things have linked with visual relationships in the nature. This kind of conflicts must rise when several people are together. Such conflicts are rarely seen in various components of the nature, like a peaceful nature. Designers seem to need efforts to build a network of relationships which space and its components can harmonize and live well. This is our designers, duty. Now, actually, including me, like the fashioning nature would be even better if anyone in any major could make the seeds of design from now on and have a different perspective of their own, because all other people has they have different emotional feelings, so we have to harmonize all these things together. This book has 12 temples showing up all around very specific things in the nature surrounding by. This list, this book shown the first Tongdosa temple, in this Tongdosa temple we'll talk about shadow of the morning suns, echo in space, 연자봉, especially small items on a roof tile, the extraordinaries of the battlefield, the ceiling. We'll talk about very special detailed ceilings, morning with the scenery, lullaby, open spring, new live things in springs, shadow of the nature. So we'll see the new shadow, or typical shadow, but we'll see, look at the different way. White plum blossoms reflecting the ponds, the flowers, our traditional yard, 장독대, peacock, especially we'll see, look at this small temple in the Tongdo temple. Tongdosa, they have many small temples inside. These 3 temples in these chapters shown. Space in the pictures. So in this Biroam small temples, we'll try to have our own space frame, the space of the morning light. So we have typically very sensitivity of the light surface on the space. So let's move to chapter 2, Heinza Temple. In this temple, we'll see soft rocks. Especially they have Hongyudong cherry blossoms. Spring Sorikil at Heinza Temple. Before we arrive the Heinza Temple, there's a road right next to the valley. We call this a Sorikil, so we'll talk about more various beautiful things in this valley. Small and then simple buttocks. Snowy pine forest, Optolectrax, voice of voice. So in this part, we'll talk about one of the famous 장경강 판전. We call it 대장경, which is very famous signboard. So hence the temple, 장경각 판전 company signboard. Between Buddha statues, the charm of the discord, regular hexagonal honeycombs. So honeycombs, they have very specific patterns of their forms. So we talk about more geometric shapes in this part. White lotus and strange rocks. Mud rock on a rocky cliff. Crescent moon and landscape. We talk about the famous artist who drew, spaceships. So we talk about in this class later on. So move to chapter 3, Songgwangsa Temple. In this temple, we'll talk about the followings. Between the green leaves, the bell tower, small, bells under the roof in the temple. We call this 풍경. So we will talk about the 풍경 in these chapters. 삼천교 famous bridges and an 우화각. Very harmonized, the bridge and the house together. A strong scenes, the winkers of the life, songs, perfumes. One of the famous, very old trees. We will describe why the wrinkle becomes, the life of their, more than decades of their life for the trees. The fun of the frame. The people has their own frame, but especially for designers, they have new frames to develop for their new ideas. So we'll talk about such like things. Corners all oil dyed yellow. Nature's hurt. Let's think about nature has the hurt. Tiled lines flowing like waves. Let's move to number 4 chapters, Sonamsa Temple. This is beautiful temples. It's one of famous, garden in a Seungpok temple in the spring seasons. So we start from nice Jangseung. Well, as you know, the Jangseung, we have two famous things. 천하대장군, 지하여장군. One is man and then the other is woman. Plum blossoms on the tiled fence. How to harmonize the plum blossom with the tiled fence together. Door and nature. How the door becomes the part of the nature. Seungjeon Bridge and Gangseongnu. Stone bridge over the streams. Water flow. Dalmajeon stonework. Garam arrangement as it is. We call this garam bechi, one of famous Korean traditional arrangement method. So we talk about more garams later on, but we shortly study the garam arrangement in these chapters. Number 5, Hwamsa Temple. Hwamsa Temple is the following: roof tiles and red plums, especially very tiny red plums. It harmonizes with the roof tiles. So we see pictures and talk about more beauty in these chapters. The balance between the tower and the columns. How the the traditional house has the balance between towers and the columns. Rainy Hwamsa Temple, especially very sensitivity moments in the rain seasons, especially for Hwamsa Temple has their own rainy moments. Regular stamina and lotus lanterns in a tint. Straight-headed bird. Hwamsa Temple, healing forest past. Hwamsa Temple has their own forest path behind the temple. There's beautiful mountains. There's hidden spaces on nature space there. Let's move to number 6, Mihwangsa Temple. Mihwangsa. We'll talk about why the Mihwangsa has the original history. Jacoba poles and the fishy headstones. They use headstones for their columns. Mihwangsa, daffodil. Mihwangsa has their own very beautiful daffodil there. So we'll see, how beautiful, scenes there. Stone steps, private iron and ivy. Fence and rocks. Water lily behind the gardens. There are hidden, water lilies behind the garden. We'll see, and then looking at the pictures, and then we'll see the beautiful moments. Dorsal arm on Mountain Dharma. Dharmasan, there's the famous mountain there. There's small branchy temple in there. Room for sunsets. So Mihwangsa Temple, especially very famous as sunsets. So we'll see this. Number 7, Sanggesa Temple. There's tiny soft lights, we'll see, look at this in chapters. The flexible headstones. The headstones, they have a very flexibility. The keeper, there's small two stone keepers located in the front of the Daeungjeon, the main temple. Winter persimmon trees, especially we see beautiful moments when in winter seasons, snow on the leaves of the persimmon trees. Slow stone wall. Stones becomes war, but um, very nature moments. We'll see this here. Color of the nature, the beautiful color of nature. A feast of transparency and cherry blossoms. There is transparency scenery harmonized with the cherry blossoms we see in these chapters. Green carpet moths, bullifors, crystal bullifors. Number 8, Bulyongsa Temple. In this temple, we'll see the first, the mystery of life, water, rocks, trees, sky. It's the same as human beings. We see their life of small nature characteristics in these chapters. The pond seasons. Byopyeongnu on the ponds. Red crepe myrtle. Dancing trees. Craftsmanship. Spring water. Kumgangsong praise. There are pine trees in Korea. There's special pine trees raised in the mountains. We see this Kumgangsong. So we'll study more about beauty of the Kumgangsong in these chapters. Sound of nature. There are lots of different sounds inside of nature. We look at it and watch and carefully hear the sounds of nature. So number 9, Sonunsa Temple. In the Sonunsa Temple, we'll study about light and shadow in the nature, foggy fog and clouds. Sonunsa ink and then light painting. We'll study more about Korean traditional painting method. 수묵담채화 in this chapter. 선운사 ink and light painting shows a very deep inside of the Korean traditional artworks. 송아, said red flowers, camellia flowers, bursting innocence. Well, in this book, I try to describe the small things, becomes like, alive in human beings, So that's why I describe, bursting innocence. The wonder of a camellia, hopping on one stone. Number 10, the Woljeongsa Temple. It's located in Gangwon Province, Gangwon-do. We'll study the following: sunny and beautiful summer. Entrance to the throne. They have the other entrance using for their nature place. So we I try to describe the entrance to the torrent. 월정사 8각, 9-floor stone pagoda. 월정사 9층 석탑 in Koreans. The pattern in the gracefulness. Hawthorn, red hawthorn, mono and white flowers. The emotional longevity beatles of cuteness. We'll talk about the Volkswagen car, the Beatles, in these chapters. The fir forest road. Score in the fir forest. Tree faces. There are lots of different tree faces we look at in the nature. So we try to, make these human face. White flowers in the springtime. Old friends. There's always young and old friends in the world, but we especially find very old friends inside of nature. Let's move to 11, Baekhyangsa Temple. In the Baekhyangsa Temple, we'll see Feast of the Four Seasons. They have a special moments for four seasons. Sangiru stone bridges, space in a new space, nature and style, grinning under the morning suns. It's something coming rise on the grounds. The morning sun comes up, right? So we'll see special moments in these chapters. Forest nature, light in the woods, the eyes of the forest, mysterious, visual trees, forest, pleasure of browse, our precious things. Let's move to the last chapter, number 12, Busoksa Temple. It's the famous old temple, Ginkgo trees colored yellow. Harmony between nature and the man-made. In these chapters, we study how the old and the new and the young things, harmonize all together. Anyangru, pure nature stone, the understated beauty of Muryangsujeon. Especially Muryangsujeon is the famous, their artistic and geometric columns. Baelim Gidung, we call this, right? We'll study about, special wood, columns for Muryangsujeon in these chapters. Stone lanterns seen from the stairs of Anyangru. Anyangru seen from below Bomjeonggak. So these two chapters we'll see how people looking at a different view makes different conclusions, because people see always different view. So I try to describe how decision making by how they look at the view. Wind bell sounds, a typical beauty, and a cute poetry, pottery, right? Cute poetry, pottery. In the last things, the cute pottery, we'll see the beautiful moments, how we're looking at the pots. 장독대, next to the traditional war and with the giwa, Korean traditional roof tiles. This is all of these contents. I hope all every classmates enjoy these books and have very special moments. Thank you.